All right, there we go. So without further ado or further delay, it's my absolute pleasure to officially welcome you to week 4 of this amazing webinar series that we started a couple of weeks ago, brought to you by the ASISA Foundation, and it's the L+EARN Financial Literacy Program for Young Adults. And of course, as you know by now, our hashtag is #SecureTheBag. What an amazing series it has been up to now, and I can assure you it is not going to get anything less than better as we continue. And so we have some special guests this morning with us, and I'm going to introduce them shortly. But for now, it's really a great pleasure to welcome you back. And again, thank you so much for investing your time in your financial future. My name is Darren August, for those who may not know, and I am your webinar host. It's my absolute privilege and pleasure to be on this webinar with you and to really walk this journey with every single one of you who keeps showing up week after week. So you guys know today we are on webinar 4 and we're going to be discussing credit, all right, so that we avoid the debt trap. So we're going to discover what the debt trap is, and then we're going to learn how to avoid it. And I can assure you we are in for a great time this morning. We have some great panelists this morning, and I think the brief was for the team to find eye candy. So guys and girls, you're gonna just love listening to these people because they're so good looking, but they also are so intelligent. And so I'm gonna invite our panelists to put their videos on so we can see who they are. First up, we have Thembisa Lutuli. Isn't she lovely? Thembisa, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Darren. How are you? I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for welcoming me.
Absolute pleasure having you. So you're here for the guys. And who's here for the girls? We have Bongumusa Kwanyana. Bongumusa, if you would put your camera on and quickly say hello to everybody.
As for eye candy. Good morning, everyone.
Great to have you with us, Bongumusa and Thembisa. We're going to catch up with you later on as we dive deep into the conversation. But for now, guys, let's get into it. And I want to remind you one more time that the L+EARN Moodle platform is designed to really continue the conversation. And I keep saying this all the time. It's designed to continue the conversation, to keep the momentum going after these sessions so that you're able to still engage with this content. All right, there's amazing resources on the platform, forums and quizzes, and so really make it your mission to participate. The website is www.l+earn.co.za. So get onto the website, register on the Moodle platform, and then participate. Obviously, there are some prizes that we are going to give out in just a moment, but it's not even about the prizes. It's really about the fact that everything we cover here and some of the things we don't get to talk through in this session is up on that platform, all right? And so it really is a great platform for you to go. There's amazing resources. You can even watch the replays of the webinar, because sometimes there might be something you missed, something that one of our guests may have explained, and you want to just get that concept again. The platform is the best place to go for you to be able to get that information, all right? And so the webinar recordings are available there, so you can go to www.l+earn.org.za or .co.za, register, and get going with the platform. Remember to interact. Also, that's how we get your contact number so that we're able to send you data for participating in this webinar. Guys, then just before we get into it, one thing that I'd really love to encourage you guys is to let's spread the word. I think that what we've been experiencing on these webinars up to now has been so rich in terms of the content. And I feel like it's almost unfair to keep it to ourselves. And so let's make it a point of extending this invitation to our friends, to our colleagues, to people we know. You know, talk about it on your social platforms. Send a WhatsApp link to somebody and say, register for this program. It's really impacting me. And let's spread the word. You know, I think we live in a country where so many of us need this information, and let us not keep this to ourselves. Let's get a couple of our friends on this webinar, especially from next week. All right, can we do that? And so let's do that. So remember, go to www.l+earn.org.za, register there, and then please register on the Moodle platform as well, where you will be able to get all of these resources and be able to participate in the program after the discussion. All right, guess where we are? We are on week 4. Today we're talking credit. Can you believe it? After today, we literally are 50% through this program already. And as I mentioned, it's really been amazing up until now. Next week, we're talking about work readiness. We then get into finances and mental health, and then entrepreneurship, and we end off the series with side hustle on the last week, which is going to be towards the end of November, 20th of November to be exact. All right, and so let's get into the discussion around credit, guys. And so what is credit? Credit is really borrowing money or accessing goods and services with the agreement to pay within an agreed period of time with interest. All right, that's the most important part to remember when it comes to credit. Credit will always attract interest. And of course, there are different types of credit. We have things like personal loans and microloans. Some of them are small purchases, but then there are some big purchases. For instance, your home or a vehicle loan. And so there are various types of credit, and we're going to be talking about some of them today. Then, when it comes to credit, there is something called secured lending, and then there's something called unsecured lending. And so secured lending basically means that the credit provider will give you access to whatever it is that you're purchasing, all right, an item, with the promise that you will pay. And if you don't pay, they will be able to repossess it. All right, so that's, for instance, a home loan or vehicle finance. They are securing the purchase, but it belongs to them. All right, unsecured is, for example, a short-term loan or a personal loan, and they are basically taking your word that you will pay. All right, they're saying, we're looking at your profile, we can see that you can afford it, and so we're going to trust you and give you this money, but we're trusting that you will pay it back as well. All right, so secured lending, there's a physical asset that they can repossess if you don't pay. Unsecured means that they are simply trusting you based on the research they've done about you, and they to then obviously trust that you will pay your debt. All right, so very important that you understand the difference between secured borrowing and unsecured borrowing. When it comes to taking credit, we understand and we know that not everybody has the ability to get everything we need with cash. All right, and so sometimes it's unavoidable to take credit. And so before you take credit, it's very important that you first check if you really need this item, all right, before you decide to take it on credit. Or otherwise, consider whether or not you may be able to budget more carefully, rather save up and get the item for cash at a later stage. So very important decision that you need to make. Also, make sure that you check what is the interest that you're going to be paying, what are the fees you're going to be paying, and what is the total amount that you are going to be paying at the end of this whole agreement, right? And sometimes when you do that exercise, you might just discover that it's not really worth your while to take it on credit. You might find that if you saved, you would be able to secure that item at a fraction of what it would cost you if you were to get it on credit. And you're going to see that our guests today are going to be talking about that quite a lot more. All right, now there is good credit and bad credit, and I saw some of you were saying we want to see what that is and what's the difference between the two. And so I'm going to touch on it very, very briefly because I know that Bongo Musa is going to dive deep into this part of the conversation. But bad credit, in essence, is really financing things that you don't really need, those luxuries, okay? For instance, you don't need to have a top of the range phone. We spoke about this in a couple of weeks ago. You just need a cell phone right now to maybe be able to connect, to be able to make calls. And so if you are financing something because you want to keep up appearances, because you're wanting to fit in, that's probably a good sign that it's bad credit. All right. And so it's using credit on items that are consumed and that leave you with nothing to show for the money that you've spent. And then good credit is using credit for something that could potentially increase in value over time, all right, or serve you better. And again, we're going to touch on this a little bit later when we have our guest join us in the discussion. But an example of good credit would be, for instance, buying a house or taking a student loan or starting a business, knowing that you're going to use that money to generate an income. How do you calculate interest? Very important. You need to know how to do this. And this calculation is available on the website and the Moodle platform. And so the calculation for it is amount borrowed times by the interest rate. Very important. And then you need to times that by the period or the amount of time that you will be paying it back. And that gives you the amount of interest charged on the initial item or the initial loan that you are taking. This calculation is available on the platform and on the website as well. And then when it comes to buying a car, we understand that not everybody can buy a car cash because it is one of those big purchases. But so many young people make the mistake with deciding how to purchase, especially your first car. All right. And so we go and we hear something like, yes, but you can get a residual or you can get a balloon payment. We don't even know what it is. And we just sign on the dotted line because all we want is to drive out of that showroom in our vrpa. Okay. And so guys, very important when it comes to buying a car and making that first car decision that you actually check your affordability, make sure you can afford it, because you don't want this huge lump sum called a balloon payment that you need to pay at the end. And Tembisa is going to help us unpack this discussion in depth, all right, when we get to it with her, because it's quite involved and you're going to see exactly how to understand it so that you make an informed decision, especially when it comes to purchasing your first car. And then when you have taken credit, it's so important that you pay on time. All right. So if you've said that you will pay on the 30th, make sure you pay by the 30th, because all of this affects your credit score negatively. And we're going to talk about that shortly. Pay at least the minimum installment showing on your statement. So nothing less than the minimum amount required is very important for you to pay. And then, of course, if you have trouble paying, we all know life happens. Make contact with the companies you owe immediately. Don't answer or don't avoid answering your calls and then you're running away from private numbers, or you're saving the company's numbers as do not answer. Okay. Don't do that. Don't run away from your creditors. Rather be proactive. Contact them upfront. Let them know that you've hit a bad patch. Make an arrangement so that you're still able to keep a clean name. And we're going to talk about that quite a bit more shortly. If you borrow from registered lenders, the NCR makes provision for debt counseling or debt review. And we'll talk about that shortly as well. All right, then guys, once you're in this world of credit and debt, it's very important to understand that you have this thing called your credit profile, right? And so many times you'll go to an organization trying to open up an account or get a loan, and they'll say, we can't give you a loan because you don't have a credit score or you don't have a credit history, all right? Or we checked your credit profile. So all of those terms are thrown around and we don't often understand what they mean. And so we need to understand that there are credit bureaus, and these credit bureaus basically keep record or keep track of our behavior as a consumer. All right. And so when we apply for a loan or we buy something on credit, these credit providers will review our credit profile. So they'll take a look and they'll see how eligible we are for credit. All right. Because they'll be able to see, all right, this person pays their accounts on time. This person has so many accounts. This person owes everybody under the sun. And then they'll be able to make a decision as to whether or not they can trust you to give you credit. Very important that if you don't handle your credit repayments, creditors may list adverse information such as defaults or court action against you. All right. So they will list whether or not you pay late. Will list whether or not you haven't paid for a couple of months. And anybody else that you are now approaching for credit will be able to see a track record of how you've behaved in the past. All right. If you have any questions about this, please type it in the comment or in the chat, and we will be answering your questions as well towards the end of today's session. Very important that you know that you're allowed to check your credit profile. All right. So it's not only the credit providers that have access to this information, it's your information, it's your profile. And so you have access to it. And it's important that you do check as well so that you can see what they are seeing about you. There's nothing worse than trying to get some credit and then discovering that you've got a couple of bad things listed against your name. All right. And so you can do this free for at least once a year with most of the credit bureaus. Most of them offer it during your birthday month as a birthday gift to you. You can literally get your entire credit profile for free. All right. But it's not all limited to your birthday month, but during the year, you're allowed to access your credit profile free once a year. And so I would encourage you to do that. In fact, let's make that our mission this week, to go out, get our credit profiles, check and see what's there so that we understand how we've been behaving up until now. Even if you think you don't have a credit profile, even if you think you don't have anything reflected there, it's still important to check. Check things like where have they listed that you live? You know, what are the most recent contact details they have for you? All of that information, try and keep it as up to date as possible. It's going to help you in the future, especially when you start making those big decisions and those big purchases, and especially if you need to go the credit route in order to do that. And so there are a couple of big bureaus and then there are a couple of smaller ones. And so check with at least 3 of them. Experian, TransUnion, and XDS. Those are the three biggest ones, but you can get a list of all of the bureaus on www.cba.co.za. It's up on the screen right now. Okay, then guys, it's so important. So remember, we spoke about budgeting a couple of weeks ago, but when it comes to your debt and your credit, it's so important as well that you have a full view of all of the money you owe. All right, and so up on the screen right now is a great way for you to be able to just separate all of the money that you owe to various avenues of various people. All right, and so you could break it up into like formal and retail, which is things like banks or stores. Then you could do informal, like Mashoni says, or any unregistered lenders. And then, of course, some of us even borrow from friends and family, and let's list that, you know. So do this exercise where you list everyone you owe so that you can start devising a plan of how you are going to reduce your debt. All right, if you don't know where you are, it's hard to plan where you're going. All right, and so this should be able to give you an overview of everything you owe, everyone you owe, and then you're able to now start devising a plan. And you can decide, okay, maybe I should start by trying to get rid of the smallest debt first. Or otherwise, maybe I would like to approach my debt by trying to get rid of the debt that is incurring the most interest first. All right, and so once you know exactly what you owe, who you owe it to, you are able to devise a plan and then stick to the plan. All right, and so on the website, you will see there is a page that's called Smart About Money. Go to that page. There's also a great debt reduction calculator on the website. All right, and so if you go to the website, use that debt reduction calculator. It's going to make an absolute difference for you in terms of how you can start planning to reduce your debt and everything that you owe. All right, and then there comes a time where you possibly might find yourself in a position where you are over indebted. It's a word that we hear so often as well. And so over indebtedness simply means you pay all of your credit at month end and then you have nothing left. All right. That basically means you are almost living off credit. All right. And so sometimes some companies will look at your credit profile and they will say you are over indebted. You have too much debt. All right. You are using too much credit, and that's why we cannot give you any more. And so if your creditors have not taken legal action against you, you may try and negotiate with them where you can see, okay, you know what, I'm actually not coping. Otherwise, if they have taken legal action, a debt counselor can help you to negotiate reduced payments on your behalf. All right. And so a debt counselor will go, they'll approach all of your creditors and they'll say, listen, I'm working with Darren at the moment. He's trying to get out of debt. So can we make some sort of arrangement to reduce the payments just until he's able to breathe again? Right, and so this debt counselor basically does a detailed budget with you, helps you create an affordable payment plan, and then each month, sometimes you'd be able to make one payment to the debt counselor, and they distribute payments to all of your creditors. Very important is while you are in this season, for lack of a better word, creditors may not be able to take action against you, and so there is protection in being under debt review or under debt counseling, because the creditors will basically not be able to come after you directly. Your debt counselor steps in, says that we are working on it, and they have a payment plan in place. That is why you'll pay the money to them, and they will distribute it to all of the creditors that you owe. All right. Now, please remember, debt review is different from debt consolidation. Debt consolidation is where you would be borrowing more money, or you would take a bigger loan, all right? And so you'll work out, I owe all of these people, and so my debt comes to a certain amount. You will then borrow an amount big enough to settle all your debt so that you're only then paying off one loan, all right? So there's a difference between debt review and debt counseling, or debt review, debt counseling, and debt consolidation. They are very different, all right? And again, if you have any questions about this, please pop it in the chat. We will be asking Tembisa about it quite in depth later on. Then, guys, we touched on this with when it came to investments, but when it comes to credit, there are scams as well. And so it's so important that you are aware, that you are mindful of the fact that there are credit scams as well. And so sometimes you have these fake credit companies that take you through this whole credit application. You see their advert on a social media platform. You click on the link, you fill it out, and then they ask you for an upfront fee to access the loan. And as soon as you've made that payment, they are just gone. All right. And so watch out for scams like that. Every company, if you are seeking credit from a company, check with the NCR if they are registered. You can go onto the NCR's website, you can put in the name of this company and check that they are registered, because if they are not registered, there's no recourse. You can't sue them. Nobody can fight your battle for you. Nobody can help you get your money back. Nobody can help you take legal action against them because they're not registered. All right. And so very, very important that if you are going to be borrowing money and accessing credit, make sure that the company you're borrowing from is registered with the NCR. All right. Check things like the email addresses, because a lot of these scammers will create fake email addresses, fake websites that look so legit, but at the end of the day, it is a scam. All right. So don't click on links that are sent via SMS or email requesting details such as your banking information. If somebody sends you these messages saying that somebody's left this inheritance for you and now you can, you're right, don't click on those. It's a scam, right? So check security features on their websites, things like padlocks and things like is it a secure site? Very, very important. Yeah. Also be careful for sites like they say we can clear your name, all right, and we can get you off the credit bureau. You can clear your own name, guys. All right. And so you're able to approach a credit bureau directly if you see on your credit profile that there is information that is incorrect or somebody has listed you negatively, incorrectly. You are able to approach the credit bureau directly. All right. Also, somebody can't just clear your name. If you've behaved in a certain way for a certain period and it's reflecting on your credit profile, by law, it has to stay there for a certain amount of time, even after you've paid it, even after you've improved your credit behavior. All right. And so don't fall prey to these scams where they say we can clear your name. Very, very important that you watch out for that, because the struggle is real. And so there are scammers out there. So Tio Wang is asking, after how many debts does one get listed negatively? And so guys, you can be listed negatively even just for one account that you have paid badly, or for one specific debt that you haven't paid. All right. So it's not based on the amount of debt you have. It's literally based on every single company or every single creditor that you engage with. Right, so that's why most young people end up getting listed negatively for a gym contract or a cell phone contract. All right, and so now you've paid off this huge loan, but somebody has listed you negatively for a 300 Rand contract because you haven't paid for a couple of months. So it's very important to keep track of all of your debt and make sure you are paying all of your creditors. This is a very good comment that's come through from Lebohang saying, I prefer lay-by rather than taking credit. It's better at this stage of life. And that's great, guys. Do you know that's actually such a great strategy? Rather lay-by an item, pay it off over a couple of months, and then go and get the item once it's paid up. Great strategy. Well done, Lebohang. Thank you for that comment. Manda's comment in the chat here says, what I learned is that we always have to be in contact with companies that you buy things on credit from if there are new laws that are put in place. For example, at the beginning of lockdown, the president said we don't have to pay our debt for 3 months, if I remember. But when I went to them, they told me I had to pay for those 3 months with interest. So it's very crucial to always be in touch with your creditors. All right, very important. Thank you. That's such a great comment. Without any further delay, it's my absolute pleasure to bring on board our first guest, who is Bongo Musa Nkwanyana. And so in his grade 11 year, he was introduced to the financial planning world when he was awarded a bursary by the Financial Planning Institute of Southern Africa for coming out tops in a financial speech contest in the whole of KZN. Driven by his enthusiasm for financial education, Bongo Musa started the initiative called Are You Financially Free or Dumb? It aims to raise awareness around financial literacy in tertiary learning institutions. And so while studying at university, Bongo Musa has played the role of tutor, facilitator, entrepreneur, and he's passionate about public speaking. Currently, he works as a paraplanner and wealth advisor assistant. Bongo Musa, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to invite you to put your camera on. Let me get my screen off and have the two of us on screen, and we can get straight into the conversation. How's it going this morning?
Going all right. Thank you so much for having me. Quite excited, actually. I was looking at the questions coming in, and I see that everyone's quite intrigued by this topic that we're discussing today. So I'm quite excited, actually.
Great stuff. We're going to try and pick your brain as much as possible. And while we're talking as well, if there are some questions that you saw that you feel like you'd like to maybe tackle during this discussion, please feel free to do so. But let's start with, so your personal experience. What do you see as debt traps that young people usually get caught in?
Awesome. Interesting that you use the word trap, because at first it comes in as something that's good, something that you can afford. And then a few months down the line, you are trapped. You find yourself in a situation where you can't actually pull yourself out that easily. So I would say credit cards. That's one debt trap that people usually find themselves in, simply because people want to use whatever that they can actually, well, the bank tells them, or whoever's giving them a credit card, that they can actually afford, whilst that's not the case. Young people buy expensive cars, especially when you just started working and the only thing that you want to do is get yourself a car. That's good, but if it's an expensive car that in the long term you won't really be able to afford, then you find yourself trapped. Another one, a simple one, would be retail store cards. You'd find yourself that with a certain retailer, they've given you, well, they tell you qualify for 10,000 rands. And instead of using at least 2,000 rands of that, because that's probably what you needed at that time, you go throughout a breakup or whatever the case is, and you just max it out and spend the whole 10,000 rand, and you don't know how to actually even pay it back. So those are some of the debt traps that people, especially young people, find themselves in.
So when one starts working and earning a salary, there are credit offers that just come along, and it's almost as if they've had their eyes on you all this time, and now they know that 100%. You're working, and so they start offering you all of this credit. Did you get any such offers when you started working, and how did you navigate that season?
Yes, you do. Especially say you just got your first paycheck. Somehow these creditors know that, hey, he's got money, let's chase after him. And you get SMSs, you get calls, even your own bank will tell you, hey, you're getting a graduate salary. You actually qualify for our private banking, and then a few conversations down the line, you also qualify for our credit card. And because you just started working and everyone's telling you, qualifying, you feel like, hey, I'm the big boss, I got this. And you find yourself in a debt trap eventually. And how does one navigate through that? And I always say whenever I speak on finances is, if you have a budget, you'll be able to actually guide yourself in terms of how do you avoid these debt traps? How do you actually even work out through your savings and your investments and so on? So have a plan, have a goal, know that this is what I can afford and this is how much I cannot really afford. So that's how I navigated. I had a budget.
Nice one. So in some instances, young people start working and they already have debt to pay off, which accumulated from their tertiary education fees. What tips do you have in how to tackle this debt?
Okay. So you just started working and you do have tertiary debt, a student loan or whatever the case is. Sometimes you find that even your parents actually took out the loan for you, and the agreement was, hey, I'm going to take out this loan for you, and once you've qualified, you're going to start helping me pay off this debt. All right, so it's kind of like you inherit it somehow. In other cases, you're the one who was responsible and went there and actually got the debt, and so on and so on. So how do you start paying that off? As I said earlier on, and I feel like to the very end of our chat, I'll still be using the same words: budget. So know what you can afford, know what you cannot afford. Earlier on, Darren spoke about how it's important to actually speak to your creditors and let them know that this is what I can afford. Can we have a chat on how can I actually start paying it off, whatever the case is. So if you know how much you can afford, how much you have of disposable income after you've paid off all your fixed expenses and so on, know that I can put away this amount of money to pay off this debt. So if it's a student loan, find out how much it is. How much interest are you being charged on it? Is it a good idea to pay that off once every month? Or is it a good idea to actually just pay it off as one installment and then you're done with it, considering how much interest you're paying and how much it'll affect you in the future? So get all the information about that student loan, and thereafter devise a plan or speak to someone who can actually help you out in terms of budgeting out how will I actually pay off this debt. Maybe you can set yourself a goal and say, in the next 3 years, I want to be debt free. In the next 5 years, I want to be done with this student loan. It's all up to you. You set yourself the goal and you know exactly how much you need to work to actually achieve that goal.
Great stuff there. One of the comments coming through in the chat saying, hey, if only we could lay by cars.
That's a good idea, hey?
Thinking about those big purchases and those big credit decisions, Bongo Musa, do you believe there is such a thing as good debt or bad debt? What is the difference?
All right. Yes, I do believe. Well, believe is quite a strong word, but yes, I am aware that there is good and there's bad debt. The difference would be, before I even say what good credit is or good debt is, I'll start off and actually explain what bad debt is. If you are going to take out credit or buy something that you cannot afford right now, through a loan or whatever the case is, and that thing you cannot show off and say, hey, this is what I use this money for. So in other words, it's a consumable good. So if you go buy groceries using debt or using credit, you can't really show that this is what I use that money for. It's consumable. So you eat it and it's gone, it's finished. So I would say if you take out debt for anything that's not going to benefit you in the future, that would be bad debt. So therefore, good credit would then be anything such as a student loan. You are investing in your future, then that will be good credit. Purchasing a house, you're getting a shelter over your head, that is good credit. We all know that you can't really afford a 1 million rand or 2 million rand house or whatever your dream home is. However, devising a plan on how you can actually pay that over the years, then that is good credit. Even getting a car, one may think it's not really good or bad credit if it's a vehicle that you use to actually help you earn more or get you to work or whatever the case is, make your life better so that you can actually earn more. It is investing in your future. So I'd say, yes, it is good credit. However, can you really afford it? So I put it in that way.
Nice one, nice one. Right, let's talk about your initiative. Are you free or are you dumb? Okay.
Sure.
What motivated you to start this initiative and what is the aim of it?
All right. When I grew up, well, how I actually got into the whole Financial Planning Institute and the whole bursary thing, my mom was part of a Get Rich Quick scheme, if you guys know what those are. And at one point, she put in like 5,000 Rand, 10,000 Rand came back. She put in the whole 10,000 Rand, 25,000 Rand came back. And then she's like, let me do this more. 25,000 Rand went in and 50,000 Rand came back. And she's like, oh, this is going so well. 50,000 Rand went in and it never came back. And that's just how, I'm sure that some of you guys can actually relate to that, or maybe your parents and so on. So that sparked an interest in me, whereby, you know how people become doctors because they probably suffered something when they were young or they couldn't save someone. So therefore, it is the same thing. Being the money doctor, as one would think, would be an interest sparked from then, whereby I saw that how Black people especially are exposed to financial illiteracy, and they're not aware of all these things. And so therefore, they're so vulnerable. And so therefore, somehow my grade 11 year, I got part of that the competition with the Financial Planning Institute. And then in my second year in varsity, I saw that most of our students actually are not aware. They keep on asking questions of where do you invest? What is easy equities? What is that? And so on. And so therefore, I saw a gap in the market whereby we could actually start an initiative educating students on where to actually start saving and investing. How do you even budget? And so on. So it was more of an information initiative to young people, as well as surrounding communities within our university environment. So you'd find that we'd actually have webinars, we'd actually have, well, back then we didn't really have, this is a webinar, but back then we would have like a guest speaker coming in or whatever the case is, and we'd have a whole conference happening. So those were exciting days. That was what the whole initiative was about. Are you financially free or dumb?
Well done. I think you're doing some great work there. As we end the discussion with you for now, Bongo Musa, what tips would you give to fellow young people on the use of credit?
Sure. Credit is for you, all right? It helps you make those big purchases that you cannot really afford at this very point in time. However, it's only as good as how you are able to pay it back. So long as you can afford it, it is good. Once you cannot afford it, we can label it as bad credit.
Nice one. Thank you so much. I think you've given us such great insight. I'm going to check if there are a couple of questions that come through for you, and we'll get you back at the end for Q&A. But for now, thanks, Bongo Musa. Please think about a tip for the week, because we're going to want that as well at the end of today's session. That's Bongo Musa. Wasn't that great? I think especially how he says that by witnessing and seeing how his mom was a victim of that credit scam or that money scam, he then started empowering himself and others with making good financial literacy. And that's really what it's about. Guys, next up, we have Tembisa Lutuli, who is a certified financial planner with a diploma in financial coaching with more than 8 years experience. She is a principal wealth advisor of the PSG Wealth or Westville branch and a lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She is passionate about empowering individuals to better manage their finances and build wealth. All right, Tembisa is a member of the Financial Planning Institute of South Africa. Welcome, Tembisa. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's get you up on screen and you and I can have a conversation together.
Hello, Darren, and hello, everyone.
I'm sure you were waiting. When is my turn? When is my turn? Because I know you've got so much to say.
I was actually enjoying listening, although I know all these things, but obviously you enjoy hearing these things as well now and again.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we hear it so often and sometimes we still don't get it. And so that's why it's important to have these conversations. And so let's start off with credit, right? So is credit necessarily a bad thing? And as a young person, is it something that we should avoid altogether?
I think you've given a great insight, as well as Bongo Musa, in explaining what a credit facility is. It's there for us to actually help us improve our lives, because the reality is we don't all have millions to achieve our goals. So it cannot then be classified as all bad. So it's got some good features, but it also has some bad features. But those bad features are made by us when we take credit that we can't afford. Then credit is seen as if it's a bad thing. So when you cannot manage the credit that you have and you cannot afford the credit that you have, then it's become a bad thing. But credit in general is a facility that is helpful. Should you avoid it as a young person? When you're still in university, I strongly recommend that, yes, you do avoid it, because affordability at that point is not really available, as you depend either on NSFAS or bursaries or your parents. So it's sort of like you're putting a burden to the next person just to fund your lifestyle or whatever the case may be. Start then engaging in meaningful credit when you can afford it. That is when maybe you get your first internship or your graduate program, so that you start building good credit profile for preparing for the future of big purchases.
All right, great one. So what if I can't avoid credit? Then what are some of the things that I have to consider if I do need to take credit?
So if you get to a point when it's really necessary to take credit, you first need to self-introspect. Okay, do I really need this credit? If the tick box is yes, okay, how long or how much do I need credit for? Do not take credit of more than what you need. So if you needed 10,000, don't take 20,000 just because it has been offered to you. Take whatever you need. Consider the timeline of how long will I be paying this credit. But moreover that, what interest rate is being charged? Have I done a good research if I can get a better offer on interest rates? And the important thing is that when you take credit, sometimes we take wrong credit for certain purchases. So what type of credit are you taking? Are you taking a personal loan to build or to buy a house? Probably the personal loan is not a good credit to purchase a house. Why not look at a bond, because the benefits are more? So look at what type of credit are you going to be taking for that certain need that you have. But above everything, credit installment is not only about paying back the money. There are fees that are attached with that installment, insurance that might be needed for that credit. So do consider all those things and see if you can afford. Then go back to your budget, as Bomosa mentioned.
Nice one. So you keep talking about afford versus qualify. So what I qualify for versus what I can afford, what is the difference, and how do I stay within what I can afford?
So remember, when we use banking apps, and our banking system is so advanced now that they can see what comes in your bank account, and then from there they try to make money by giving you these different offers. So what you qualify for is based on what the bank has on you, so what information they have on you, and in most of the time it's just basically your income. So if you get 25,000, they will then just do simple calculation and say, okay, based on the fact that you earn 25,000, you qualify for 100,000 loan, which a 100,000 loan might need you to pay 6,000. But you might not be affording that because you've got other responsibilities. You've got other things in your budget that will not allow you to fit in an installment of 6,000. So what you qualify is based on what the bank is offering you or what your income is exposing you to. But what you afford is based on the budget and the responsibilities that you have and how much disposable income you have after paying everything.
Nice one. All right. And so what tips can you give on the use of credit cards? I can see quite a few comments in the chat about credit cards and other revolving credit facilities such as overdrafts, where one does not need to reapply, but they always have a certain limit available to them.
Okay, those are dangerous ones. Even I myself, and as adults as I am, I really try and avoid them. So the first tip will be, if you can at all costs, avoid them. But then if there is a point, I know with a credit card, it's one of the bank's motivation on giving you certain rewards to say, use your credit card more. So I always say, try and make sure you get the minimal credit to use as possible, something that will be within your affordability, something that will be minimal. But if you've already in the debt trap of having those credit facilities that allows you to use and pay, but also reuse the credit available, make sure that you pay off and don't reuse. Always then decrease the credit that is now available to you. So if you had 25,000, pay every month, then decrease with whatever you've paid off, so that the temptation is removed in your face until you get to the point where you know I can afford this and you know I can close this if that is your intention.
Nice one. Before we move on to the next part of our discussion, I want to remind you all on the webinar today. Remember, so earlier on, I mentioned that there is the debt reduction calculator on the website. So I want to encourage you, go through to the website, www.l+earn.org.za. Crystal, if you can just put the website address in the chat one more time for us. So remember, guys, go to the website. The calculator is there. And of course, all of this information and more is available on the website as well, www.l+earn.org.za or .co.za. Let's talk now about, I mentioned that you would dive deep into this part of the conversation, Tembisa, about that first car purchase. And so when buying a car, what is meant by residual or balloon payment, and what are the disadvantages with this kind of credit agreement?
All right. So Darren, we all get excited on our first employment when we get our first paycheck, maybe a 3 paycheck, and then you think, you know what, I'm ready to buy that car. You go to the dealership and you tell the salesman, listen, I love this car, and they tell you a price. Okay, this car is actually 400,000. So you've already invested your emotion in this car. You already love it. Your mind is telling you nothing else but this car. When the dealership or the salesperson tells you it's 400,000, and when they calculate the installment will be 7,000, oh wow. You go back to your budget, your budget is saying, no, you can't go there. You are not affording this. But we know how emotions and money work. Once you've invested your emotions, it's so hard to tell your mind and yourself that, you know what, I can't afford this. You try, and already the salesperson want to make his sale. So they'll tell you know what, sister, oh, my brother, you can actually, I can make you afford this. I can make you not pay the 7,000. You're like, how? What? How? And they tell you, you know what, there's something called a residual or a balloon payment. You can actually pay 4,000 for this car, not the 7,000. Is really that? They ask you first, how much can you afford? You say, at least I was planning 4.5. No, we can make the plan. All right, how? They tell you there's something called a residual. We'll give you a residual of 35% or 45% or whatever the maximum is available at that point. So what a residual is, if the car is costing 400,000, there is a lump sum that is delayed and put at the end of the term. So yes, you're going to be paying this car, the 4,500 that you said you can afford. But then that 400,000, that 4.5 is only calculated maybe on 220 of the 400,000. So the 180 is then hanged. It's sort of like a hanged lump sum that you need to pay as a lump sum at the end of the term. So after paying this 4.5 for 6 years or whatever the term that has been chosen for you, you still need to pay 180,000 at the end of the term. Now the question becomes, if you couldn't afford to pay 7,000, how are you going to be able to save for the 180 at the end of the term? All right, you obviously cannot. And when the term ends, obviously the VUPRA is no longer that nice. There have been so many other VUPRAs that has been generated. You're now paying almost 8 years for the car because you might need to refinance the 180 that is waiting for you at the end, which is the balloon. And if you cannot afford to refinance it and continue paying maybe for another 3 years again, which means you're only paying 8 years for just a VUPRA, which is now old, and you're not even able to catch up. So if you cannot afford to refinance it, because there is possibility that you now have more responsibilities, you cannot afford to now refinance the 180. Disadvantage is the bank might want to take the car back, because the reality is you still owe them the 180, so the VUPRA still belongs to the bank. So after paying for 6 years, now you lose the car, you still owe the bank 180,000. So that's how dangerous a balloon payment is. And I would say, if you cannot to buy a car without a balloon, you probably don't afford that car, move to a lower one.
I like Lebohang's comment in the chat says, this sounds like a professional scam. We're running out of time, but I want to quickly get to 2 more questions. And so the first one is, if I have fallen into this debt trap, what practical steps can I take as a young person to, on my own, to reduce debt and get out of this?
Okay, first, discipline. With debt or financial management, we first need to talk to yourself, get yourself into a point where you accept that I'm in debt. That's the first step. Accept that you are in debt, and then discipline yourself and change your behavior. Changing your behavior, you need to go back to your budget and remove any luxuries if there's any. Once you've removed luxuries, choose a way. We've got 2 main ways where you can attack your debt. One way is you list all your debts, as Darren have given us, that list all your debts. See which debt is the smallest. Either you take the smallest debt, you pay it first, quicker, whatever 50 Rand you have, pay towards that smaller debt. Once you finish it quickly, whatever installment you were paying to the smaller debt, you move it. You don't stop paying the other debt. You continue paying whatever is required so that you will not get judgments. But whatever extra that you get, attack the smaller one until you finish it. You move to the next one until you finish the cycle. Or another way is, make sure you pay all your debt in time and whatever is required. But again, if you get any extra income, attack the one that has the highest interest, because the one that has the highest interest is the one that is eating too much money out of your pocket. So you then attack whatever. If it's a personal loan, you attack it so that you can pay it sooner. So whatever then income is released from paying off that loan, you move it to the other debt. In that way, you're finishing the cycle until you are debt free. But obviously not everyone has disciplined and to stay course. So it is then recommended first see a financial coach or a financial counselor, which will be able to be your accountable partner and walk the journey with you and advise you correctly. And you will then be debt free.
You just explained that plan so well, and even how you explained the whole balloon and residual payment, I think is absolutely great. And so I want to encourage everyone on the webinar today, go back, watch this replay on www.l+earn.org.za. go on the website, make sure that you watch the replay again, and you're going to see, you're going to be able to get this information again. Somebody in the chat here is saying, this topic needs a lot more allocated time to break down all the concepts with every credit purchase. I'm definitely going to rewatch this. Absolutely. Okay, guys, and so make it a point, go back, rewatch this. And again, there's so much more of this content on the website. Last question, Thembisa, is what tips can you give on how one can build and maintain a positive credit profile?
Okay, because obviously when you've been studying, you don't have any debt. And when you start working as your first employment, I remember when I started working, I was very intentional about building a credit profile. So you took the minimum debt that you can afford. I took one store card because I've heard that when you want to buy a car, they look if you've had any clothing accounts or furniture accounts. So I took a minimum. I bought just my small fridge for 2,000, which I could have afforded to buy cash. So that's why I say, but take a debt that you can afford, meaning I could have afforded to buy my fridge with 2,000 Rand cash. So I bought it on credit so that I can pay the minimum 150, which I can afford on my monthly basis. Because the point is to show that I can manage debt, I pay my 150 installment in time. Ensure that you pay your debt in time. If your installment is due on the 25th, don't pay on the 27th and say, I forgot. You need to pay them on time. Pay what is required or more, because if they say they're 150 and you pay 140, you're now a defaulter. So pay 150 that is required or even more. Do not also engage in taking debt often. This month you are taking debt. 3 months down the line, you are seen taking another account. That is seen as if you are dependent on debt. So your credit profile then looks dirty and not attractive. So you are then categorized as a risky person who cannot manage their own finances, who always now and again have to go back to debt so that they can maintain their lifestyle. So give yourself some time between the debts that you take, maybe 12 months or even more if you can do so. But try and maintain your payments in time and make sure you take the minimum debt as you can.
Wow, Thembisa, thank you so much. I'm going to get you back at the end if we've got time for Q&A. Otherwise, your tip for the week coming up shortly. But that was just so informative. And again, guys, I want to just remind you that you can go back and you can actually watch this replay. And also remember that a lot of the information that we're sharing with you all today is available on the website, www.l+earn.org.za. All right, so go there, go to the website, go through this information, share this information, rewatch the replay. It can only benefit you more. Thembisa, if you can maybe just prepare to answer this question when you come back. And so the question is, so if I never want to buy anything on credit, does that mean I automatically have a bad credit score? That's a question from Precious. Great question, Precious. We'll come to that one from, we'll get Thembisa to answer that one later on. Okay, so questions and answers. Guys, if you could put your camera on again, Bongo Musa and Thembisa, and let's quickly get you to answer just these two questions. So Thembisa, the first question which was, so if I never want to buy anything on credit, does that automatically mean I have a bad credit score? And then you could possibly tackle this one from Lebohang as well, that came through in the Q&A, which says, for new lenders or credit takers, does their bank track record play a role in determining how much credit they will qualify for, specifically from the bank that they bank with?
Okay, the first question, if you've never bought credit, it's like you've never went to university, so you will not have an academic record. So employers, when they ask for academic record, they will not get it. So it's the same thing. So if there is no credit record in your name, that means there is nothing when you eventually want credit, because the reality is, unless you're a millionaire who can afford to buy houses in cash, buy your cars in cash, and you will never need credit, then sure, you cannot engage in credit. But as you grow, you'll see that as an adult, there are things that will really need you. If you want that fancy house and you don't have the 3 million, you will want to knock to the bank's door and say, can you guys borrow me your 3 million? I can't afford to pay you guys in the next 10 years. They will say, okay, let's see, how do you engage with debt? How do you behave when it comes to debt? And then boom, there is no record. And then they'll say, no, you are high risk. We cannot risk so much money when we've never seen, even if you manage a debt of 30,000, then it's all phased. So definitely, unfortunately, that's how the systems work. Not debt information on your name. You cannot access any debt unless you show that you're gonna work as hard as having enough millions to buy everything in cash, even for business. Because remember, this even relates when you want to engage in business, start a business, and maybe want a business loan, that will be checked. So if you show that you're gonna start businesses and make millions and never need credit, then don't engage in credit.
Nice one. Thank you so much.
And then can you please repeat the second question, Darren?
The second one was for new lenders or credit takers, does their banking track record play a role in determining how much credit they will qualify for, specifically from the bank that they are with?
Definitely. Within the bank that you bank with, they usually look at the transaction on how you transact, and that's how they determine what offers to give you, and how much they should give you. So your transaction and your transactional behavior definitely determine how much credit you might qualify for. I think there is someone who's unmuted.
No, that's analyst.
Okay. All right. So as I was saying, yes, your transactional behavior definitely determine how much credit you get and what type of credit do you get. Even with other banks that you do not bank with. Because they might often say, please give us, if you don't bank with us, please give us 3 months bank statement, or give us 6 months bank statement, because they want to see what your behavior when it comes to banking.
Nice one. Thank you so much. Bongo Musa, if you can come back on screen, let's get your tip for the week.
Righty, tip for the week. I would say, whenever it comes to money, have a budget, one, have goals. Whenever you're given money and you do not have a goal, you can never really say, I've achieved this and this with my money. So have a goal and have a budget. The budget helps you attain those goals, and it helps you avoid credit. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Bongo Musa. It was great chatting to you today, and thank you for sharing so openly and giving us such great pearls of wisdom.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Tembisa, let's get your final thought for the week.
My tip of the week is that to avoid credit and bad credit, don't live a wow lifestyle on a laugh out loud budget, because a wow lifestyle requires money, and you do not have money, you'll end up then taking credit. So don't live a wow lifestyle on a laugh out loud budget.
Did you guys hear that? Don't live a wow lifestyle on a laugh out loud budget. Hashtag secure the bag. Okay. So guys, you should definitely do that. Thank you so much, Tembisa. Absolutely great chatting to both of you guys this week. It was absolutely amazing. Here we go, guys. So for this week, log on to the L+EARN Moodle platform, register, download resources, participate in forums and quizzes, and of course, you can win weekly prizes. Go to www.l+earn.co.za. A reminder, you can also watch all of the replays there, especially those of you who didn't catch some of the tips that were shared today, or perhaps you're new to these webinars. And then, of course, I saw somebody else here saying, please give all of us prizes for participating. You all get prizes. Everybody gets data for participating in this webinar. And so that's why you have to register on Moodle so that we can see your number, send you the data automatically. 2 weekly prizes for 300 Rand shopping vouchers, one for the most interactive and second for the first participant to complete the weekly activities, all right? And so go onto the Moodle platform, go onto the website, and please get this done. It's going to absolutely benefit you. Today's winners are, let's go, drum rolls. So this is just for your engagement in today's webinar. You get a 300 Rand shopping voucher. And so first up, we have Lebogang Koka. Well done to Lebogang. Let's give some snaps and claps in the chat. For Lebogang, you get a 300 Rand voucher. And so we're empowering you with 300 Rand that you could now save somewhere else. And so make sure that you do save your 300 Rand. And then last one for today is Rikhetile Maduna. Rikhetile Maduna, you get a 300 Rand voucher from Checkers as well. So well done to you. Let's give some congratulations in the chat, some claps and snaps in the chat to our 2 winners. What an amazing session we've had. Guys, we've gone so far over our time, 15 minutes over our time. But thank you from the bottom of our hearts for staying engaged, for being part of today's webinar. Remember to go onto the website www.l+earn.org.za. Remember to register on Moodle, continue the discussion there. There's nothing stopping you from doing the quizzes, participating in the forums, and really putting all of your comments, literally copy and paste your comments that you've made on today's chat and put them over there on the Moodle platform so that we can continue this discussion. Go through to the website, rewatch the webinars. There's the debt reduction calculator is there. The budgeting template from week 1 is available there, and so much more information that can really help you. Hashtag secure the bag. We are halfway through the program. I'll be back here next week, same time, same place, with all of you, plus the friends that you will invite during the course of this week. And we're looking forward to continuing our financial literacy journey as young adults with the L+EARN Financial Literacy Program, brought to you by the ASISA Foundation. My name is Darren August. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. I will see you next week. Have a great one, guys. Goodbye.